Hello and welcome. In this demo, we will be focusing on the SAP Build Process Automation Foundation, add-on by UiPath. We will be covering various aspects of the integration between UiPath and SAP Build Process Automation. Let's briefly discuss the automation that we want to create. We'll focus on a purchase-to-pay scenario, and we'll start with an invoice document with the goal of extracting important information from it. For that, we'll use UiPath Document Understanding. To make sure that our critical information is accurately extracted, we'll send a task to a human user to review the output. Once the accuracy is validated, we need to make a decision based on the invoice total value. If it's above a certain threshold, it should undergo an additional approval step. The final step would be to send the extracted information into a system that will trigger the payment of the invoice. Let's now continue with the design time experience. For that, we'll go to the SAP Build lobby and create an automated process. In the next screen, we can select Business Process and provide a name for our project. As the project loads up, we can create our first process. Let's call it Purchase to Pay Process. One of the first things that we need to do as soon as the project gets created is to add a trigger. For the sake or simplicity, we can use a simple form. This will ensure that our automation process will be executed whenever the form is submitted. Let's now design our form. We'll keep it as simple as possible by adding just 3 fields: task assignee, company code, and file name. We'll discuss more about this later, but for now, we can return to the Process tab. Here, to continue our process, we need to add a UiPath automation to process our invoice. We can add this process step by clicking on the plus sign. Then choose Automation. For the moment, we don't have any automation available. Otherwise, they would appear here so we can choose from the pre-existing ones. For now, let's choose to create a blank automation. In the next screen, we can choose between an SAP Build automation or a UiPath automation. Since we want to use UiPath Document Understanding to process our invoice, let's choose the latter and provide a name. We can call it Invoice Extraction and click on Create. The moment the artifact gets created within the project, we will see the embedded UiPath Studio web open up right within the SAP Build Process Automation. The advantage of this seamless experience is that the developer will remain on one canvas and can design the task automation in the context of the large business process design in SAP Build Process Automation. First, let's think about the arguments that we need for this automation. We can define an input argument to capture the file name. We'll also create output arguments for the invoice number, gross amount, and payment terms. Then, in the UiPath Studio web canvas, let's add the Get File or Folder activity to retrieve our invoice from OneDrive. After selecting the parent folder, we can use our file name argument to retrieve that specific invoice. Next, we can use the Extract Document Data activity to send our invoice to UiPath Document Understanding. As this is quite a common document type, we can use the out-of-the-box ML model for invoices. We can then add the Create Validation Task and Wait activity to send the extracted data to a human user for verification. Lastly, we can assign the extracted values to our output arguments. This is how we pass data from the UiPath automation back to the SAP process. Our progress will be constantly saving automatically, so we can return to our SAP build process at any time. Let's now map our input and output arguments to the UiPath automation step. When clicking on the initial form trigger, we can see that it automatically provides the output variables from the form. We just need to pass them to as input to our UiPath automation. Similarly, we can see that the UiPath automation generates the output that we defined in the previous step. The next step in our process is to evaluate a condition. If the amount of the invoice is below a certain threshold, it should be automatically approved. Otherwise, it will go into the Decide Approval business rules. SAP Build Process Automation has capabilities that allow us to design complex decision trees, depending on the criteria that need to be met in the business process. For example, we have this decision table. Depending on the scenario, we can have multiple decision trees here. To finalize the process, we'll have to create an approval form and send it to the output from the previous decision tree. We'll make sure to include in the form the variables extracted by UiPath document understanding. If the invoice gets approved, either automatically or by a human user, we'll use an SAP Build automation to paste the invoice data into SAP S/4HANA. Since we are done with developing our automation, it is now time to release it. We can do that by clicking on the Release button in SAP Build. Once the process is released, we can click on the Deploy button and select an environment. There's no need to manually publish the workflow in UiPath Studio Web. Once we release the process in SAP Build, the corresponding environment and project folders will be created and the UiPath process will be automatically released. Let's have a quick look at how the execution looks like. To get the automation started, we can click on our trigger and copy the form link in our browser. After filling in the input data, we click on Submit. Now, we can switch our attention to the second aspect of the integration, which is the monitoring part. Within the Monitoring tab, you can either choose to open up the processing workflow instances or the automation jobs directly. Let's choose the first option. Here we can see that our process is already running. We can expand the Logs section to get more insights and notice how different components got executed. UiPath automations can be recognized by their distinctive icon next to the log message. Let's now move our attention to the Automation Jobs dashboard. We can see that the process extracting data from the invoice is running. From here, we can click on Open in UiPath and dive deeper into troubleshooting the automation, if needed. If we do so, we can see that the execution is suspended. That's because we have a task created in UiPath Action Center. In this task, we can review the extraction results of UiPath document understanding. After submitting the task, the SAP Task Center interface will be updated as well, thanks to the integration. To make sure no task is missed by the assignee, UiPath Action Center sends emails to users whenever a new task has been assigned to them. Back to the Monitoring tab, we can see that our process is completed. Since the total value of the invoice is below a certain threshold, our invoice data was entered directly in SAP S/4HANA using an SAP Build automation. In wrapping up, the SAP Build Process Automation Foundation add-on by UiPath provides a powerful tool to streamline workflows and accelerate innovation. This seamless integration, powered by a unified developer experience, featuring holistic monitoring and end-to-end orchestration, takes automation beyond individual tasks to a more comprehensive enterprise-wide level. So, envision a future of limitless automation with SAP and UiPath, revolutionizing your business operations.